Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I want to talk about why I love the TV show Superman and Lois. Now, really quickly, if you're unfamiliar with Superman and Lois, it was on the CW. Basically, it followed Superman pretty far into his career. At this point in time, him and Lois have been together for 20-ish years. They even have like two 16-year-old sons. In fact, they're twins, Jonathan and Jordan. And kind of slight spoiler, but this happens pretty early on in episode 1. After Martha passes away, Clark moves to Smallville, kind of wanting to get away from the hustle and bustle of Metropolis and kind of spend his time and get closer to his family, because he hasn't always been able to balance the whole, you know, Clark Kent Superman situation, especially when it came to his kids. And now, you know, they're ultimately finding out who he really is, especially as Jordan's starting to develop powers, and obviously just living in Smallville, reconnecting with kind of his roots in a lot of ways, and kind of building a new home for his family as they try to make it do and make it work with like balancing, you know, Clark Kent the husband, Clark Kent the father, Clark Kent as Superman, and juggling all of this, facing different threats their way. So it's just a dope Superman series. It is tangentially connected to the Arrowverse, because really is like Arrowverse adjacent, because even though it's not directly Arrowverse related, it is still technically in the multiverse of the Arrowverse. What makes this show really unique, you're able to see Superman, like, for anyone that's not a comic book person, someone who might only be familiar with the animated series or the movies or other TV shows, you get to see Superman in a way that you don't always get to see depicted. Like, once again, like the family man situation, and especially like it's not young kids, these are full-blown teenagers, and that kind of changes a lot of the dynamic. And it's just this show can make you a Superman fan. Even if you're not the biggest fan of Superman, I think this show does such a fantastic job with some of the Superman stuff they put in there. And I've said it time and time and time again. Like, if you ever heard me talk about Superman and Lois, I always talk about it ad nauseum, how Tyler Hoechlin, which I always feel like I'm butchering his last name, and Elizabeth Tulloch, who play Clark/Superman and Lois Lane respectively, are my favorite iterations of these characters. Obviously, like, it's a little recency bias, but they do such a fantastic job. They do so well playing these versions of Clark and Lois, while also, you know, putting their own turn to it. Like, the creators and writers were able to craft these characters in a very unique way, but these actors are able to also bring that to life and give, you know, stay true to who these characters are at heart, while also, once again, giving their own portrayal, because it's very specific circumstances. So, like, that's what puts this show in a very unique spot, because it's like, it's a very different Superman in regards of, we've never seen, like I said, live action wise and stuff like that, maybe not fully in the animated wise, getting to see a Superman in this very particular situation. So it's a very unique take on Superman in that regard, because you don't always get to see Superman under these conditions and circumstances. It's just a fantastic show. I mean, I think everyone from top to bottom do such a great job. And once again, I get, like, some of the CW-isms may not be for everyone. I'm a CW stan, so I'm perfectly fine with that. But I know some people might overshadow it for some people. But I still think, you know, if you're a Superman fan, I highly recommend you check it out, the show, because I made a video maybe before season 3 came out, or it might even been after season 3 came out, where I talked about the fact this is a very underrated show. Like, the people who watch it love it, myself included, but there's just so many people who don't know, because they're just like, oh, it's another DC show and the CW. But it's like, they do a lot with, like, the little they have, especially in the final season. But the show does such a great job building out these characters, and you connect with everybody, and it's just so much fun. It really hits you. Like, anyone that felt like, oh, I haven't really gotten my Superman portrayal, has not seen this show, because, like, they do such a good job painting Superman, and they do such a good job presenting him in such an interesting way, and just some of, like I said, just the Superman of it all, but also just like the Clark Kent and all. It's all wrapped up. It's not like you're missing any element to it. It's just the Superman package is right there in front of you, and I think they just did such a fantastic job with the show. Like I said, I would recommend this show to anyone that, even if you've never watched anything Arrowverse related, or if you are someone who has watched, maybe you didn't watch all the Arrowverse, maybe you fell off a certain point in time, I say everyone should check out this show. Maybe it ultimately won't be your cup of tea, but I highly recommend at least checking it out. I think it's such a great show. You don't need to have watched the Arrowverse to enjoy this show, because it's kind of its own thing. Like I said, it's technically in the multiverse that is the Arrowverse, but, like, it's just its own thing. So none of the Arrow stuff affects this at all. There's some like winks and nods to stuff that it's like, if you knew Arrowverse stuff, you'd be like, oh, that's interesting, like some casting stuff. I won't get into it, but if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. Some casting things where like, oh, certain characters or people or actors playing certain roles pop up. You're like, oh, that's kind of fun, but it's nothing overarching is connected to the Arrowverse. Like I said, it's just kind of its own thing. Even if you got burned out by the Arrowverse, and like I said, I get some people did. I loved everything in the Arrowverse, but that's just me. I'm not saying everyone had to, and it's like, oh, you're a bad person if you didn't enjoy everything. It's like, I really did, and I know that that's me. But yeah, I recommend, even if you got burned out on the Arrowverse, this show is great to check out. It's perfect to check out. The show just wrapped up, like, obviously it's been a little while, so like maybe a month ago at the time of me recording this. It was 4 seasons. Each season's not extremely long. The first 2 seasons are 15 episodes each. The third season's 13, and the final season, the 4th and final season, was 10 episodes. I will also note that sadly, because everything going on, reshuffling at the CW, everything that's happening at DC, it's just an amalgamation of different things happening. The show sadly got its budget heavily cut, but I having seen the final season in its totality, they made the most out of it, and they told like such a great story. So the show went out on a bang, and it just ended so beautifully, so that I'm like, it's well worth it from top to bottom. Like, some people might have some of their favorites and least favorite elements to the show, but I think overall, I've loved the entire show from top to bottom, from beginning to end. So, and like I said, because it is over, if you've never jumped on a Superman and Lois train, it's an opportunity to do that now that the entire show is done. This has easily become my favorite CW show, which I think what kind of held that for a very long time for me was iZombie. Interesting enough, is kind of DC related because obviously the comic was under the Vertigo umbrella. But probably like before this, my favorite Arrowverse show was probably Legends of Tomorrow, and this has kind of, you know, easily become #1, like I said, across the board, both just DC show as well as just CW show in general. It's just like, it's just such a great show. I know I hope I'm not overhyping it or whatever, but I just think it is well worth anyone's time, like, you know, Superman fan or not, because I do believe even if you're not the biggest Superman fan, this could make you a Superman fan. And I think even if you are a Superman fan, it can make you even more of a Superman fan, or appreciate the direction they went with this show. So it just, like I said, I can't gush about this show enough. I was sad to see it end, especially because there were talks about like, oh, like I think I talked about this, Elizabeth Tulloch and stuff, right? They were kind of not guaranteed, because nothing's necessarily guaranteed, but they were kind of had to believe like, hey, we might get 7 seasons out of this. But once again, everything that's kind of happening all at once just ended up making it so the show sadly got cut short. But I feel like I still go back to what I said before. They still managed to, even with all the setbacks and complications of just budgetary like restrictions, they still landed it beautifully with the series finale. So it's a great watch all the way through. So, but I'm going to end here like with my gushing and rambling. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.